Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza, who represents the families of deceased mine workers at Lonmin, says Marikana is probably the lowest point in democratic South Africa. 44 people died during wage strikes by Lonmin mine employees. 34 of them, mine workers, were shot by police on this day 9 years ago. Advocate Ntsebeza joins us now to talk to us then as we reflect back on the Marikana story 9 years later. Advocate, good morning, and thank you so much for your time. When one looks at the Marikana story, one of the journalists yesterday that I was in conversation with described it as a depressing story, but it's important for us to keep it going to ensure that there's accountability. Do you ever think that we could ever get to a point where we see accountability here?
Well, I'm the classical eternal optimist. And therefore, I would still not be connected in any way with the widows of the Marikana, episode, that fateful day today, 9 years ago. So I haven't lost hope. I just am irritated, firstly with myself and my legal team, because when we started to engage the Ministry of Police in particular, and we sued on behalf of the families whose mine worker relatives were killed on this fateful day, we had approached a settlement-driven approach. In other words, we didn't think that we should just go to court. We were, we proceeded on the basis that we were dealing with people who understood that no amount of money will ever restore the lives of those mine workers who got killed today 9 years ago. But that, at law, there is a basis for those families to be compensated for their loss. And some of the heads of the claims that we instituted was to say there needs to be an apology by the government and or by the Ministry of Police, who would be, minister would be representing the government of the day. I don't know, and I can't appreciate why it has been very, very difficult for that to happen. And I blame myself in some ways and my legal team that we didn't just go to court and proceed to finality to get all the heads of damages, or to get the court to be the one to decide whether apology is an appropriate, relief that we should seek through the courts if we cannot get it via consultation. So, yes.
I'm going to ask us just to pause and go for a quick ad break, because I want to stay on this issue of the apology, and I want you to listen to words from the former police commissioner, Ria Pierga, who sent her apologies to the families yesterday when I was in conversation with her. But let's take a quick break, and when we come back then, we'll continue with our reflections. Thanks for staying with us. We're still in conversation with Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza. Now, Advocate, before we go, I'd like us to just listen to what Ria Pierga had to say to us here on Newzroom Afrika yesterday on the apology.
I was indeed deeply affected. I feel the pain, the suffering that family members of these victims are enduring today, and they will endure for many, many more years. I appreciated the opportunity I was offered during the Farnham Commission to make an apology on behalf of the service for the tragedy that had happened. I continued to do so in various platforms, And even today, I want to thank you for this small opportunity that has been extended to say the loss of life of the 44 people that perished during that operation is highly regretted.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's never too late for anyone to say, I apologize. And it's never too late for those to whom the message is being sent to say, well, you know, to the extent that you now say you are apologizing, we accept your apology. But I haven't forgotten the former commissioner of police, her stance at the Marikana Commission, certainly at the commission in which I was representing the families. She came across as a very arrogant person, as a person who did not concede a single point when we indicated to her that as far as these particular killings were concerned, and we showed her on video that in fact the irony of it all is that these people had already been persuaded by Matunjwa to come down from that mountain, to go home. And if you see the visuals, these are people who were getting home. But these are people who were ambushed. There is no better way. We should not beat about the bush. These people were ambushed. They were shot from behind and when you see them in this clip running towards the police who were waiting there, you know, I mean, there's a spin that is being given to that particular clip that they were attacking the police. That's nonsense. They were being shot from behind and they were running and they were waylaid by those people who shot at them in cold blood. Okay, let's forget about the popular, you know, picture that we see. What about a picture or what about evidence that is very clear of a person who was shot from behind across the river about 60 meters from where, you know, the person who was shooting them was? How do you call that? How do you say that was an act of self-defense?
Now,
so the former commissioner, you know, I mean, she didn't adopt that stance in the Marikana Commission at all.
When we look at accountability, she says that, you know, she had the moral duty to protect the civilians, but also then points to some constraints when it comes to the operations of the day. She says the provincial commissioner would have been the person that was in charge of operations, and the overall commander would have also been the person in charge then. And you look at this story of Marikana, accountability needs to go even beyond the police. You also need to listen to the cries of the families who are saying that the you know, then former Lonmin non-executive director, President Cyril Ramaphosa, now needed to come to them as well. Lonmin needed to heed their calls because their husbands wanted money. So accountability is very key as we inch closer to the 10th anniversary of the Marikana massacre next year.
I can't agree with you more because there is nothing at all for President Ramaphosa to do that which he had said he was going to do. Namely, that he was going to take, I think he had pledged that he was going to take Mrs. Winnie Madikizela Mandela.
Julius Malema at the funeral, yeah, as well.
Yes, at the funeral, yes. And you know, I don't know, 2 years down the line from that date when there was that pledge, I haven't seen anything of the sort taking place. I certainly, as an advocate, leading a team which represent the families of those 37 mine workers who died, who were killed in that period of time. We must always remember, it's not only the 34 who were killed on that day when we see it in that clip. 3 mine workers had been killed before that. So that's why the number is 36, 37. Now, but the point is, I welcome, speaking for myself, I welcome that, at some stage, there's been a moment when the former police commissioner has come to terms with what should be her conscience now. But it is not the Ria Pierre who, throughout the Falam Commission, was testifying there. And even in another commission that was held, subsequent to that, she still was not showing any remorse at all. And therefore, when we talk about accountability, I think the first step towards accountability is the one that she has taken. Yes, I get worried about what happened, but then, there's something much more than that. And where I said earlier on, I blame myself as a leader of the legal team representing the families, is the fact that we had thought that, the Ministry of Police and all those who were involved would understand that this is not a matter that we should go to court about. It's a matter that must be settled. Yes, some of the heads of damages have been settled, but there are others where, like constitutional damages, and the apology, which is something that we believe is going to go a long way to healing the wounds that those widows still suffer from.
Do you think it's going to be easy to bring those who shot the mine workers, the first group in front of the cameras, to book, especially when you look at the fact that even to this day, the police and the NPA and those involved are still battling to piece together the puzzle of the deaths that we saw in the days before, the deaths that occurred, behind the rocks at the Kopi, because some of the men there had even cable ties on their knees and they were facing down, and you can't even explain that. How easy will it be then for us to at least then get justice for the first group that was shot in full view of the cameras?
Well, as I say, some of these facts, and they are facts, have been put outside court to the Ministry of Police to persuade them that there is evidence which in court would stand if the matter was set down for litigation or for the judge, whoever the judge would be, to decide on the issues. But our approach had been to say, why do we need to go to court for something which to everybody else is manifestly wrong? And if it is so that you are going to contest the legitimacy of a protest, but because we must never forget that what was it that sparked these killings? There were people who had assembled on the mountainside in a labor protest. You can't alter that. You can't say anything to disprove that fact. What started to happen was a protest. Now, yes, there were 36 there were 3 other people who were killed. I'm talking now about mine workers. There are people who will say, but then, there are other people who were killed. No one has said to my clients that they were responsible for those other killings that had taken place from the 13th or onwards until the 16th. In that period of time, I'm talking about the 3 people, one of whom is the one who was shot, at the back of his head across the river. And I don't want to, in a program like this, dig deep into the facts, which might be contentious by mentioning names. But everyone knows that this person was shot 60 meters across the river. And that was, I think, on the 13th or so, before the 16th. Yeah. So, as far as I'm concerned, this has been there for people to see. And we proceeded, regrettably, and I blame myself for that. We proceeded on the basis that we understand where we are. We want closure for everybody who was involved in this thing. Litigation, is going to take its own course. It's going to be elongated. People are going to be forced to remember things that happened 9 years ago. It is not appropriate for a post-apartheid constitutional democratic government to seek to take those cheap points when it is manifest what it is that they, on behalf of a democratic constitutional government, should be doing in order.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bring closure to the people who were.
That's true. Thank you so much, Dr. Ntsebeza. We truly appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure to speak to you 9 years on. Hopefully next year, this time, when we commemorate this day, we'll be talking a different story, and you'll be able then to give somewhat of, closure to your clients who so desperately seek it. That was Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza, who was reflecting on the Marikana massacre 9 years on.